Dirty with dust and with his stomach growling, he saved coins for weeks, until he paid $1 for an impossible bull. The crowd laughed, the auctioneer mocked him, and the boy just held the rope with trembling hands. But when the bull finally stepped out of the pen and stared at the boy, something happened that wiped the smiles off everyone's faces instantly, and the whole yard fell into absolute silence. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment what part of the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The alley behind the old diner was Billy's bedroom. The smell of old grease and wet cardboard was his blanket. "Move over, you're on my pillow," Billy whispered. The stray dog, a scruffy mix of brown and gray, let out a sigh but shifted on the pile of burlap sacks. Billy settled down next to him. The dog's tail gave a single, quiet thump against the ground. "Mr. Carl tossed out half a hamburger today," Billy said, his voice a soft mumble to the dog. "The good kind, with the pickles. I saved you the bun. It's in my pocket." He pulled out a squashed, greasy paper packet and tore the bun in two. He gave the bigger piece to the dog. They ate in silence, listening to the distant sound of a car driving down Main Street. "Tomorrow's the day," Billy said after swallowing. He reached for a rusty coffee can hidden behind a dumpster. He pulled it onto his lap and pried off the lid. Inside, a heap of pennies glinted in the faint light from the diner's back window. "I counted 3 times today. It's 100. That's one whole dollar." The dog sniffed at the can. "I know it don't look like much," Billy said, "but it is. It's the most money in the world. It can fix things." He wasn't sure what things, but the heavy, solid feeling of the can in his hands made a warm spot in his chest. Morning came too early, with the slam of the diner's back door. Billy was already awake, sitting against the brick wall with his knees pulled up. He watched Mr. Carl, the cook, drag a big plastic bag to the dumpster. "Morning, Mr. Carl," Billy whispered, looking down at his broken shoes. Mr. Carl jumped. "Lord, boy, you're like a quiet little ghost." He shook his head, not unkindly. "You hungry?" Billy nodded, still not looking up. Mr. Carl went back inside and came out with a piece of toast on a napkin. "Here, slow day yesterday. That's all there is." "Thank you," Billy said to his shoes. He ate the toast in 4 small bites, making it last. He spent the morning walking his usual paths. He checked the bench outside the post office for lost coins. He walked past the church, its doors locked tight now that it wasn't cold at night. He was a small shadow in a town of grown-ups who didn't see him. His stomach growled. The toast was a memory. He thought about the dollar in the can. Maybe he could buy a real meal. The idea was so big it scared him. A loud noise made him stop. It was a deep, booming voice, followed by a crackle. It came from the east end of town, past the feed store. Billy knew what it was. Once a year, the big field there filled with trucks and animals and shouting men. The animal auction. He wasn't allowed. He knew that without anyone telling him. But the noise was a pull. He crept closer, keeping to the sides of buildings, until he could see the field. It was bigger and louder than he remembered. Men in big trucks and dusty hats stood in a crowd. Fences held nervous-looking cows and a few tired horses. In the middle, on a wooden platform, a man with a red face talked faster than any person Billy had ever heard. "That's Mr. Jenkins," Billy mumbled to himself. He knew the name. Everyone did. Billy found a spot behind a tall fence post where he was mostly hidden. He watched as a farmer led a large brown cow into the open area. Mr. Jenkins's voice became a rapid song. Men raised their hands. The cow was sold. It was led away. Billy's hand was in his pocket, holding the single dollar bill he had taken from the can. It felt smooth and important. He didn't know what he was doing here, holding it so tight his fingers hurt. He just knew that the dollar was for something big, and this was a place where big things happened. A new kind of quiet fell over the crowd. The men stopped talking. Billy peeked around the post. 2 workers were struggling to lead a huge black animal into the open space. It was not a cow. It was a giant bull, its muscles rolling under a coat as dark as a night without stars. It shook its massive head, and the crowd took a step back as one. Billy's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anything so powerful and so angry. The bull's eyes were wide, showing white all around. Billy should have been terrified, but he also saw the way the bull's sides were heaving, the way it tried to pull away from the ropes. He knew that feeling, the feeling of being pulled somewhere you didn't want to go. He didn't know it yet, but his lonely life was over. The dollar in his sweaty hand was a key, and the storm of black muscle in the auction ring was about to become the only friend he had in the world. The air over the auction yard was thick with dust and noise. Billy stayed behind his fence post, his heart beating fast. The big men with their trucks and loud voices made him feel smaller than ever, but he could not look away. Mr. Jenkins's voice boomed over the loudspeaker again. "Next up, a fine pair of quarter horses. Sound animals, good for work or riding. Do I hear an opening bid?" A man in a green hat raised his hand. $400. "400, I have 400, Mr. Jenkins chanted, his words running together like water. "Will someone give me 450? 450 for the pair." Billy watched the horses. They were beautiful, but they were not for him. The numbers the men shouted were like a foreign language. Hundreds of dollars, more money than he could ever dream of. He let his fingers feel the edge of the $1 bill in his pocket. It suddenly felt very thin, very small. The horses were sold. More animals came and went. Billy's legs grew tired from standing still, but he was rooted to his spot. This was the most exciting thing he had ever seen. After a while, a different kind of quiet settled over the crowd. The workers brought no new animal out right away. Instead, Mr. Jenkins took a long drink of water and wiped his red face. He leaned into the microphone, his voice dropping from a song to a serious growl. "Now, folks, next lot is a special case. I need your full attention." Two men came out from a heavy metal trailer. They were not walking easy. They held long, strong poles, and between them was a thick rope. They pulled hard. The huge black bull stepped out into the sun. A low sound went through the crowd. Not words, just a murmur of surprise and fear. The animal was enormous. His shoulders were like boulders. His hooves dug into the dirt. He swung his head, and the long, sharp points of his horns cut through the air. Billy's mouth went dry. This was the animal he had seen before. Up close, it was even more terrifying. The bull's dark eyes were not wild like a scared deer's. They were focused and angry. He did not want to be here. "This," Mr. Jenkins said slowly, "is Diablo. He's a Spanish crossbreed, 5 years old. He's strong as a train and smart as a whip." One of the workers yanked on the rope. Diablo snorted and stamped, making the ground shake. The crowd took another step back. "Now, I'm going to be honest with you," Mr. Jenkins said. "His history is troubled. He came from a ranch in Texas. He's broken through steel fences. He's hurt men who tried to handle him with force. He is not a pet. He is a problem." A farmer near the front called out, "Then why are you selling him, Hank?" Mr. Jenkins scowled. "Because I'm in the business of selling animals, Tom. Not my job to judge him. Maybe one of you has the setup for him. A strong private pen far away from everything. Maybe for breeding, if you're brave and stupid." A few men chuckled, but it was a nervous sound. "So," Mr. Jenkins continued, picking up his auctioneer's rhythm again, "who'll start the bidding? Do I hear $1,000? For an animal with this strength, this pedigree?" Silence. Billy held his breath. The whole yard was quiet except for Diablo's heavy breathing and the clank of the rope against his halter. $800? Mr. Jenkins tried. "I can't give him away, folks." More silence. Men looked at their boots. They shook their heads. No one wanted a problem that big. Mr. Jenkins's face got even redder. He was not used to being ignored. "Fine. You drive a hard bargain. $500. This is a $5,000 animal on a good day, and I'm asking $500. Still, no hands went up. No voices called out. From his hiding spot, Billy looked at the bull. He saw the way the men pulled the rope so tight. He saw the bull's muscles tense and ready to fight. He saw the deep brown eye that seemed to look right past the crowd. Billy knew what it felt like to be pulled. He knew what it felt like for everyone to look at you like you were a problem. A strange feeling pushed up from his empty stomach. It was not just fear, it was something else. Mr. Jenkins threw his hands in the air. "All right then, no bid means no sale. We're wasting time. Take him back to the trailer. We'll figure out what to do with him later." The two workers nodded, relieved, and began to pull Diablo around. The bull resisted, planting his feet. Something moved in Billy's chest, a spark, a stupid, crazy idea. The $1 bill was in his hand now. He didn't remember pulling it out. He looked at the wrinkled green paper. $1. The most money in the world. The workers were turning the great black bull away. They were taking him back to the dark trailer. Billy's feet moved before his mind could tell them to stop. He stepped out from behind the fence post. The dry Kansas dirt crunched under his broken shoes. He walked forward into the open space between the crowd and the auction block. He was so small, a patch of worn denim and messy hair in a sea of grown men. He held his arm up as high as it would go. In his small, dirty fingers, the single-dollar bill trembled in the hot afternoon air. For a second, nobody noticed him. Then a man in overalls glanced down. He nudged the man next to him. A ripple went through the crowd. Heads turned. The low murmur returned, but this time it was dotted with soft laughs. Mr. Jenkins, annoyed at his failed sale, peered down from his platform. "What's this? You lost, boy?" Billy said nothing. He couldn't speak. He just kept holding the dollar up, his eyes wide, looking past Mr. Jenkins at the black bull. A chuckle spread through the men in the crowd. Then another. Soon the whole auction yard was filled with the sound of deep, rumbling laughter. "Well, I'll be," Mr. Jenkins said, his angry red face softening into a mean smile. He leaned on the podium, looking down at Billy. "You hear that, folks? The young man here is making a bid. $1 whole for the devil himself." The laughter grew louder. Billy felt his face grow hot. He kept his arm up, the dollar bill fluttering slightly in his shaking hand. "You sure about that, son?" a farmer yelled from the back. "He might eat that dollar for lunch." More laughter. Billy wanted to disappear into the dirt, but he didn't lower his hand. His eyes were fixed on Diablo. The bull had stopped fighting the workers. He stood very still, his great head turned, one dark eye watching the small boy. Mr. Jenkins wiped his eye, amused. All right. You know what? It's been a long day. We could all use a laugh." He raised his gavel. "I have a bid of $1, going once, going twice." He slammed the wooden hammer down with a sharp crack. "Sold! To the little cowboy with the big dream." The crowd whooped and clapped, not for a sale, but for the joke. Billy slowly lowered his arm. He didn't understand the laughter, but he understood the word sold. He looked at the dollar in his hand. It was gone. He had spent it. A cold wave of fear washed over him. What had he done? One of the workers, a man named Ed with a thick mustache, looked at Mr. Jenkins. "You serious, Hank? We just gonna hand this bull over to a kid?" "The bid was made in front of everyone, Ed," Mr. Jenkins said, still grinning. "A deal's a deal. Let him have his new pet." He waved a hand, his voice dropping so only those nearby could hear. "The kid'll run the second that beast snorts. Then we'll just take him back. No harm done." Ed shook his head but nodded to the other worker. They carefully unclipped the long lead rope from their poles. Ed held the very end of the rope and walked slowly toward Billy. The laughter of the crowd died down, replaced by a tense, watching silence. "Okay, boy," Ed said, his voice low and careful. He held the thick rope out. "Here you go. He's all yours." Billy stared at the coiled rope in Ed's hand. It was as thick as his own wrist. He looked past Ed at Diablo. The bull seemed even bigger up close, a mountain of black muscle. Billy's legs felt like water. He wanted to run, but he had spent his whole dollar. This was his. This was the thing his money had fixed. He reached out one small, dirty hand. He took the heavy rope from Ed. The man let go quickly and stepped back, joining the crowd. Now it was just Billy and the bull. The rope was so heavy it immediately pulled Billy's arm down. He used both hands to hold it. Diablo turned his huge body to face the boy fully. The bull's nostrils flared, blowing out hot air. He took one step forward, then another. The ground shook under Billy's feet. A woman in the crowd gasped, "Somebody grab that child!" But no one moved. They were all frozen, watching. Billy was terrified. He closed his eyes tight, waiting for the hit, the pain, the horns. He heard the snort again, closer. He felt warm breath on his face. He flinched, but no attack came. Billy slowly opened one eye. Diablo's massive head was right in front of him. The bull was lowering his head, not to charge, but slowly, gently. He brought his broad, wet nose down and pressed it softly against the front of Billy's dirty overalls, right where his empty stomach was. It was a nudge, a quiet, searching nudge. Billy let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He let go of the rope with one hand. Shaking, he raised it and placed his palm on the bull's forehead and between his eyes. The hair was coarse and wiry. Diablo stood perfectly still. Billy looked into the bull's deep brown eye. He saw no anger there now. He saw something else, something he recognized. It was loneliness. A single, clear thought cut through Billy's fear. Asterisk, he is like me. A smile touched Billy's lips. It was a small, wobbly smile, but it was real. He rubbed the spot between Diablo's eyes. "Hi," he whispered. The auction yard was utterly silent. The men weren't laughing anymore. They were staring, their mouths open. Mr. Jenkins's amused smile had vanished, replaced by a look of pure confusion. From the side of the platform, a woman stepped forward. She had blonde hair and wore a pink shirt too nice for the dusty yard. She was Ruby Jenkins. She didn't look confused. She looked at Billy and Diablo, and then she looked at her father. Her eyes were sharp and calculating. "Dad," she said, her voice sweet but firm, "we need to talk, right now." The quiet in the auction yard was a heavy thing. The crowd of farmers and ranchers stared, not knowing what to do. They had come to buy animals, not to watch a miracle. Billy didn't notice them anymore. All he saw was the dark, gentle eye of the bull. His small hand stayed on Diablo's forehead. The bull let out a deep, rumbling sigh. His hot breath stirred the dust at their feet. "You're okay," Billy whispered, more to himself than to Diablo. "We're okay." One of the men near the front, an older farmer named Joe, took off his hat and scratched his head. "I ain't never seen nothing like that," he said, his voice full of wonder. The sound of his voice broke the spell. People began to murmur. They shifted on their feet. A few shook their heads in disbelief. On the platform, Ruby Jenkins pulled her father by the arm toward the steps. "Now, Dad, before this goes any further." Mr. Jenkins followed, his eyes still locked on the boy and the bull. "What is there to talk about?" It was a joke, a funny one. "It's not funny anymore," Ruby said, her sweet voice now low and urgent. She led him to the side of the auction office, away from most of the crowd. "Look at that. Really look." Mr. Jenkins looked. Billy was now talking softly to Diablo, his words too quiet to hear. He patted the bull's thick neck. Diablo stood calmly, his head lowered to the boy's level. "So the beast likes the kid," Mr. Jenkins said, shrugging. "So what? The kid'll get bored or scared by tonight. We'll get the bull back." "No," Ruby said, her pale eyes sharp. "You're not seeing it. That bull was a monster 5 minutes ago. Now he's acting like a puppy. That boy didn't tame him with a whip or a stick. He just stood there." She leaned closer. "A dangerous bull that's suddenly gentle is not a $500 problem, Dad. He's a $10,000 attraction, maybe more. People would pay to see that. Rodeos, shows, breeding, you name it." "Mister." Jenkins's face changed. The confusion faded, replaced by a slow, dawning understanding. He rubbed his chin. "We sold him for $1. We made a mistake," Ruby said, nodding firmly. "A public mistake, but it's not too late to fix it." "How?" The gavel fell. Everyone heard it. Ruby smiled a thin, tight smile. "He's a street kid, Dad. He sleeps behind the diner. He doesn't own anything. He can't own anything. He's a minor with no parents. The law won't let a child own a dangerous animal. We'll say the sale was a joke, a misunderstanding. We'll give him his dollar back. We'll be doing the town a favor, taking a hazard off the streets." "Mister." Jenkins looked from his daughter's determined face back to the yard. Billy was now walking slowly, leading Diablo by the rope toward the edge of the open area. The bull followed him with slow, careful steps, as if afraid to step on the boy. "He's leading him," Mr. Jenkins muttered, amazed. "Exactly," Ruby said. "And that's our proof. If the bull is that tame, then it's valuable. That value belongs to us, not to some orphan digging in our trash." Back in the yard, Billy felt a happiness so big it scared him. He had never owned anything bigger than a coffee can. Now he had Diablo. The bull's presence beside him was like a warm, solid wall. "We gotta find a place," Billy said softly to Diablo. "Can't stay here." He looked toward the open fields beyond the auction grounds. That was the only place he could think of. But to get there, they had to walk past the people. Billy felt the eyes on him again. He looked down at his shoes, the old habit returning. A shadow fell across him. He looked up. Ruby Jenkins stood there, her hands on her hips. Mr. Jenkins was right behind her, looking less sure. The friendly, smiling look was back on Ruby's face, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, hello there," Ruby said, her voice syrup-sweet. "That was quite a show you put on." Billy said nothing. He tightened his grip on the rope. Diablo shifted his weight, his body moving slightly between Billy and the newcomers. "I'm Ruby. This is my father, Mr. Jenkins. You know, from the auction." Billy nodded, just a tiny movement of his head. "We need to have a little chat about your new friend here," Ruby said. She took a step closer. Diablo let out a low snort. Ruby stopped, her smile flickering for just a second. "You see, sweetie, there's been a mix-up." "A mix-up?" Billy's voice was a small, thin sound. "That's right, honey," Ruby said, keeping her smile wide. "My daddy here, he was just having some fun with the crowd. It was all a big joke. Nobody really sells a bull for $1, especially not a fine animal like this." She gestured toward Diablo, who watched her with a steady, dark eye. Mr. Jenkins cleared his throat. He wouldn't look directly at Billy. "The girl's right, it was for laughs. No real sale happened." A cold knot tightened in Billy's stomach. He shook his head slowly. "You said sold. You took my dollar." Ruby's laugh was a light, tinkling sound that felt wrong in the hot, dusty air. "Oh, sweetie, of course we'll give you your dollar back. Here, I have it right here." She pulled a crisp $1 bill from her pocket and held it out. "See? You can have it back. No harm done." Billy stared at the new green bill in her hand. It was not his dollar. His dollar was wrinkled and soft. This one was stiff and loud. It was a trick. He took a step back, pulling gently on Diablo's rope. The bull took a step with him. "Now come on," Mr. Jenkins said, his voice growing firmer. He held out his own hand, palm up. "Just hand over the rope, boy. Time for the joke to be over." "No," Billy whispered. "What was that?" Ruby asked, her smile hardening at the edges. "He's mine," Billy said, a little louder. He felt a strange courage bubbling up from where his hand touched Diablo's neck. "I bought him. Fair." Ruby's sugary tone evaporated. "Listen here. You are a child. You live on the street. You do not own property. You certainly cannot own a dangerous animal. It is against the law. My father could get in a lot of trouble for even letting you try." She took another step forward. "Now give us the rope." Billy shook his head again, clutching the thick rope with both hands. The fear was back, a sharp taste in his mouth. Mr. Jenkins glanced at the few people still lingering nearby. They were watching, curious. He puffed out his chest, playing to the small audience. "Son, I'm not asking again. That animal is a menace. You are endangering yourself in this town. Hand it over." When Billy didn't move, Mr. Jenkins sighed like a man with no other choice. He stepped forward and reached for the rope in Billy's hands. Diablo saw the man's hand coming toward his boy. A deep, warning rumble came from the bull's chest. Mr. Jenkins hesitated, his hand in midair. "He's fine, Dad," Ruby urged, though she didn't move closer herself. "The bull's calm. The kid just has the rope. Take it." Emboldened by his daughter's words, Mr. Jenkins grabbed the rope just below Billy's fingers. He yanked it hard. The movement was fast and angry. It was the kind of pull Diablo knew from the men in Texas, the kind that meant pain was coming. The gentle light in Diablo's eyes vanished. It was snuffed out like a candle. A red-hot fury took its place. He threw his massive head up with a powerful jerk, tearing the rope from both Mr. Jenkins's and Billy's grip. Mr. Jenkins stumbled back with a shout. The rope now hung loose from Diablo's halter. The bull lowered his head, not in a nudge, but in a fighting stance. His nostrils flared. He scraped one heavy hoof backward in the dirt, kicking up a cloud of dust. He was not looking at Billy. He was focused entirely on Mr. Jenkins. "Whoa now, easy," Mr. Jenkins yelped, scrambling further backward. "Diablo, no!" Billy cried. At the sound of the boy's scared voice, Diablo hesitated. His head swung toward Billy. The fury in his eyes battled with something else. Billy saw his chance. He didn't think. He just moved. He darted forward and grabbed the dangling end of the rope. He didn't pull it. He just held it. "Run!" Billy shouted. But he was not shouting at the bull. He was shouting the word to himself. He turned and began to run, not toward the people, but toward the open field behind the auction yard. He ran as fast as his small legs could carry him, the heavy rope dragging behind him. For 1 second, Diablo stood still, looking from the frightened man to the running boy. Then he turned. He spun his huge body and followed Billy. His trot was swift and ground-shaking. In 3 strides, he was beside the boy, matching his pace. "Hey, stop them!" Ruby screamed, her voice shrill and angry. But the men who were watching just stood there, stunned. They were not about to get in the path of an angry, running bull, even if a small boy was leading him. Billy and Diablo reached the edge of the field. They pushed through a gap in a wire fence and kept going, leaving the auction yard, the laughter, the greed, and the shouting far behind. They ran into the wide, open Kansas land where the only sounds were the wind, their own breathing, and the pounding of a giant heart and 2 small feet. "I want that bull, Daddy. You go after them right now." Ruby Jenkins' voice cut through the quiet that had settled over the auction yard. Most of the trucks were gone now. The show was over. Mr. Jenkins rubbed his arm where the rope had burned his hand. "Go after them? Ruby, that bull was about to trample me. Did you see his eyes?" "I saw a bull that followed a little boy like a dog," Ruby snapped. She pulled out her lip gloss and applied it with a quick, angry motion. "That means it's tame. A tame fighting bull is worth more than this whole auction made today. We are not letting some street rat walk off with it." Sheriff Roy Tucker's patrol car rolled slowly into the yard, kicking up a little dust. He had heard the commotion was over, but came to check anyway. He got out of his car, his movements slow and tired. He tipped his hat to them. "Hank, Ruby, heard things got a little exciting." "Exciting?" Ruby laughed, a short, harsh sound. "Sheriff, that homeless boy just stole my father's bull." The sheriff looked around the empty yard. "Stole? Hank, you reported a theft?" Mr. Jenkins looked uncomfortable. "Well, not exactly a theft, Roy. He bid $1 and I sold it to him as a joke." "A legal sale then," Sheriff Tucker said, his gravelly voice even. "But he's a minor. He can't own anything," Ruby insisted, her hands on her hips. "And that animal is dangerous. It's a public safety issue. You need to go get them and bring that bull back." Sheriff Tucker looked out toward the wide fields that stretched beyond the town. The sun was beginning to hang low in the sky. "A 7-year-old boy and a 1,500-pound bull. Where exactly am I supposed to go look, Ruby? They could be anywhere out there. It'll be dark soon." "So you're not going to do anything?" Ruby's voice was icy. "I'll keep an eye out," the sheriff said, turning back to his car. "But a sale is a sale, Hank, even for $1." He got in and drove away, leaving a cloud of frustration behind him. Out in the fields, Billy's lungs burned. He couldn't run anymore. He slowed to a walk, then stopped, bending over with his hands on his knees, gasping for air. Diablo stopped beside him. The bull was not even breathing hard. He nudged Billy's side gently with his nose, as if checking on him. "I'm okay," Billy puffed out. He stood up and looked around. They were in a sea of tall, golden grass. The town was just a smudge of buildings far behind them. He could not see any people. For the first time since he took the rope, he felt a little bit safe. "We need a place to hide," Billy said. He started walking again, this time at a slow pace. Diablo walked beside him, his head swinging low to the ground. After a while, they came to a small grove of trees surrounding a dry creek bed. It wasn't much, but the trees gave some shade and hid them from view. Billy led Diablo into the grove and sat down with his back against a wide tree trunk. Diablo settled on the ground next to him with a heavy sigh, his big body stretched out. Billy's stomach growled loudly. He hadn't eaten since the piece of toast that morning. He thought about the dollar bill Ruby offered. It was clean and new. He wished he had taken it, just so he could buy some food. But then, he looked at Diablo. If he had taken the dollar, he would not have Diablo. "It's okay," he said to the bull, scratching behind his ear. "We'll figure it out." The sun dipped lower. The sky turned from blue to orange. A cool wind picked up, rustling the leaves above them. Billy shivered in his thin overalls. He moved closer to Diablo, leaning into the bull's warm side. The heat from the massive animal seeped into his back. Diablo shifted, curling his body a little more around the boy. As darkness fell, Billy heard a new sound, a low, distant rumble. It wasn't Diablo's stomach. It was coming from the sky. He looked up through the leaves. Thick, dark clouds were rolling in, blotting out the stars. The wind grew stronger, whipping the grass outside their grove. Diablo lifted his head. He sniffed the air. A nervous energy buzzed through his big frame. Another rumble, closer this time. A bright flash of light lit up the clouds for a second. A storm was coming. a big one. The sky broke open. Rain fell not in drops, but in a sudden, cold sheet of water. Wind howled through the trees. Billy scrambled closer to Diablo. The bull was on his feet now, head lowered against the weather. The trees offered little protection. Within seconds, both boy and bull were soaked to the skin. Lightning flashed, turning the world a brilliant, scary white for an instant. Thunder boomed right after, so loud it vibrated in Billy's chest. Diablo stamped his feet, his eyes wide. Billy wrapped his arms around the bull's wet neck. "It's just noise," he shouted over the wind. "Just noise and water. We're okay." But he wasn't sure they were. The wind grew stronger. A branch cracked and fell nearby. They needed better shelter, but Billy was afraid to move. The field was flat and open. They would be the tallest thing out there. He remembered hearing once that you should not stand under a tree in a lightning storm, but you should also not stand in a field. He didn't know what to do, so he just held on. Another flash of lightning. This one was different. It wasn't a fork in the clouds. It was a bright white-blue bolt that stabbed down from the sky, hitting the earth somewhere near the town. The thunder that followed was an enormous, cracking explosion. Billy saw it. For a second, the entire horizon lit up. He saw the shape of the Jenkins farm on the hill. He saw the main house. He saw the big barn next to it. And he saw the lightning strike the very top of that barn. A heartbeat later, a new light appeared. Not the clean white light of lightning, a flickering orange light. It grew quickly. "Fire," Billy whispered. The wind blew the rain sideways, but it also blew toward the town. Billy watched as the orange glow grew brighter and taller. The rain was not putting it out. The barn was on fire. Diablo smelled the smoke on the wind. He let out a worried snort. Billy's thoughts were a storm inside his head. That was the Jenkins barn. Mr. Jenkins and Ruby were in there. The people who tried to take Diablo, the people who laughed. A part of him, a small hard part, felt a mean kind of justice. Now they would know what it felt like to lose something. He watched the fire grow. Then a new sound reached his ears. It was faint, carried by the wind. It was a voice, screaming. A woman's voice. He could not hear the words, but he heard the terror in it. "Ruby." Billy thought of Mr. Jenkins reaching for the rope. He thought of Ruby's cold, smiling face offering him the new $1. He wanted to hate them. He tried to hate them. But the scream kept coming. He thought about the feeling of being alone and scared. He thought about the dark trailer Diablo had been in. He knew what it was like when no one came to help. "Someone's in there," he said out loud. Diablo nudged him, as if asking what they should do. Billy looked at the bull. He looked at the burning barn on the distant hill. The rain beat down on his face. The wind whipped his wet hair. He made a decision. "We have to help," Billy said. His voice was quiet but sure. He had never ridden a horse before, let alone a bull. But Diablo was big and strong. Billy grabbed a handful of the bull's wet mane. He put a foot on Diablo's bent front leg and pulled himself up, scrambling onto the bull's broad, wet back. He lay flat, clutching the mane tightly. Diablo stood up. He was steady, solid. Billy pointed toward the orange glow on the hill. "That way, Diablo. Go, fast." Diablo did not hesitate. He understood the fear in Billy's voice. He understood the pointing. He burst out of the grove of trees and into the open field. He began to run. The ground flew beneath them. The wind and rain stung Billy's face. He held on with all his strength, leaning close to Diablo's neck. The bull ran with a power and speed that took Billy's breath away. They were not running away from trouble anymore. They were running straight toward it. The town rushed up to meet them. They leaped over a low fence. They pounded down a muddy back road. People on their porches, watching the distant fire, turned and stared with open mouths as the huge black bull and the small soaked boy charged past them in the pouring rain. Billy did not see them. His eyes were fixed on the fire, now a towering inferno lighting up the night. He could hear more voices now, shouting. He could feel the heat on his face even from far away. "Get to the barn," Billy yelled to Diablo, though the bull already knew where to go. Chaos swallowed the Jenkins farm. The big barn was a roaring tower of orange flame and black smoke. Neighbors stood in the muddy yard, helpless, holding garden hoses that sprayed weak streams of water that vanished into the heat with a hiss. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, doing nothing against the inferno. Ruby Jenkins stood at the edge of the light, her face streaked with soot and tears. She was screaming at two men. She was screaming at Diablo, He's in there. My father is in there. He went back for the account books." "The front's fully engulfed, Ruby," a man named Carl shouted back. "We can't get through. The fire truck's coming from 2 towns over." A groan came from the burning structure, the sound of wood about to collapse. Then, a new sound cut through the crackle of the fire and the shouts of people. It was a deep, pounding rhythm on the wet earth. Asterisk, thud, thud, thud. People turned, their eyes widened. Through the curtain of smoke and rain, a shape emerged, a huge black bull running faster than any animal they had ever seen. And on his back, clinging tight, was the small, soaked figure of Billy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "It's the boy," someone yelled. "And the devil bull." Ruby stopped screaming. Her mouth fell open. Billy guided Diablo with his knees and his hands in the bull's mane. He saw the burning wall of the barn. He saw the collapsed roof near the front. But on the side, there was a weaker spot, where the fire was just starting to eat through the wooden boards. "There, Diablo," Billy cried, pointing. "We have to go in there." Diablo never slowed. He aimed his powerful shoulders at the spot Billy indicated. The crowd watched in frozen horror. They thought the bull was charging to his death. They thought the boy would be killed. "Stop him!" a woman shrieked. But it was too late. Diablo hit the burning wall. It was not a graceful leap. It was a brutal, shocking crash. His head and shoulders smashed through the burning wood. Splinters and sparks flew into the air. The wall gave way with a scream of tearing timber. For a moment, Diablo and Billy were silhouetted against the hellish glow inside the barn. Then they disappeared into the smoke. Inside, the heat was a living thing. It stole the breath from Billy's lungs. Smoke stung his eyes. He could barely see. "Mr. Jenkins," Billy coughed out, his voice a tiny rasp in the roar of the fire. Diablo stamped and snorted, turning his head from side to side. Flames licked at the hay on the floor. Then, Billy saw a motion. Over by an old tractor, a man was slumped on the ground. It was Mr. Jenkins. A heavy beam had fallen, pinning his leg. He was conscious, waving weakly at the smoke. "Diablo, over there!" Billy slid from the bull's back. He landed on the hot ground and ran to Mr. Jenkins. The man's eyes were wide with pain and shock. He saw Billy and shook his head in disbelief. The boy? "We have to move the wood," Billy said. He grabbed the end of the beam. It was too heavy. It did not budge. Diablo pushed forward. He lowered his head. He shoved his strong forehead against the beam, right where it lay across Mr. Jenkins's leg. With a grunt of effort, he pushed. The beam scraped across the floor just enough. Mr. Jenkins cried out in pain, but his leg was free. "Can you stand?" Billy yelled over the noise. I think so." "You have to. Diablo can't carry us both." Billy put his small shoulder under Mr. Jenkins's arm and pulled. The big man groaned but got to one knee, then to his feet. He leaned heavily on Billy. Diablo turned, positioning his body between them and the worst of the flames. He nudged them toward the hole he had made. Go, Billy urged, half dragging Mr. Jenkins. They stumbled toward the jagged opening. A section of the roof near them groaned and fell in a shower of sparks. Diablo moved quickly, herding them forward with his body, taking the heat on his own back. Together, they burst out of the burning barn and into the cool, rainy night. They stumbled a few feet into the muddy yard and collapsed. For a second, there was no sound except the fire. The crowd was completely silent, staring. Billy lay on his back, gasping for clean air. Mr. Jenkins coughed and clutched his injured leg, and Diablo, his coat smudged with soot, stood over them both, his sides heaving, watching the barn burn. He lowered his head and nudged Billy's arm, checking on him. Ruby finally moved. She ran to her father, falling to her knees in the mud. "Daddy, you're alive!" Mr. Jenkins looked from his daughter to Billy, who was sitting up now, patting Diablo's smoking side. He looked at the bull who had just smashed through a wall of fire to save him. The man who had laughed and called the sale a joke could not find any words. Sheriff Tucker's patrol car skidded to a halt in the yard. He got out, his face grim. He took in the scene. The collapsed barn, the rescued man, the crying woman, and the boy with his bull standing protectively beside him in the flickering light. The sheriff took off his hat. He just stared, the truth of what he was seeing finally, fully settling in his heart. The only sounds were the crackle of dying fire and the soft patter of rain. The crowd of neighbors stood in the muddy yard, not moving. They all looked at the same thing, the small boy, the giant bull, and the man they had just pulled from the flames. Sheriff Tucker broke the silence. His voice was low, but it carried across the yard. "Somebody call for an ambulance. Hank's leg needs looking at." His words broke the spell. People began to move again, murmuring to each other. 2 men ran to help Mr. Jenkins sit up. Ruby stayed by her father's side, but her eyes were on Billy and Diablo. Billy was on his feet now, one hand resting on Diablo's neck. The bull stood perfectly still, letting the boy lean on him. Billy's face was pale under the smudges of soot. Sheriff Tucker walked over. He stopped a few feet away, looking first at Billy, then at Diablo, then at the hole smashed in the burning barn wall. He let out a long, slow breath. "Billy," the sheriff said, "are you hurt?" Billy shook his head, his eyes big and wary. He didn't speak. "That's good," Sheriff Tucker said. He then turned to where Ruby was kneeling. "Ruby, your father's going to be okay. Thanks to them." Ruby stood up. Her nice clothes were ruined, covered in mud and ash. Her voice trembled, but not from fear now, from anger. "They caused this. That bull is a menace. If it hadn't been loose, my father wouldn't have been in there." A few people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. They had all heard her screams that her father was inside for the account books. Sheriff Tucker's face grew stern. "That's enough, Ruby." He looked at Mr. Jenkins. "Hank, you want to tell me what happened in the barn?" Mr. Jenkins winced as someone wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. He couldn't look at the sheriff, or at Billy. He stared at the ground. "I was a fool, Roy. I went back in for a metal box with some papers. The beam fell. I was trapped." He finally glanced up at Diablo standing calmly beside the boy. "Then they came. The boy and the bull you sold him," Sheriff Tucker stated clearly. "It was a joke," Ruby started. "It was a sale." The sheriff's voice cut through hers, firmer than anyone had ever heard it. He looked at the faces in the crowd. "Many of you were there. A bid was made. A price was accepted. The gavel fell. That makes it a legal contract. That bull belongs to Billy. It belonged to him before he pulled your father from that fire, Hank, and it belongs to him now." Ruby's face flushed red. "He's a child. He can't own anything. It's not right." "What's not right?" Sheriff Tucker said, stepping closer to her. "Is a grown man and woman trying to take back a sold animal from a 7-year-old boy. What's not right is me, knowing that boy slept behind the diner in the cold and driving right on by." He looked around at all the people. "We all saw him. We all looked the other way. And then tonight, when every one of us was too scared to move, that boy and that so-called menace did what we couldn't. They ran into the fire." The yard was dead quiet. People looked at their feet. They felt the weight of the sheriff's words. Sheriff Tucker turned back to Ruby and her father. "The law is clear. The bull is Billy's property. If you try to take it or threaten him or bother him in any way, I will arrest you. Do you understand me?" Mr. Jenkins nodded slowly, his head still hung. Ruby clenched her jaw. She looked at Diablo, then at Billy, then at the sheriff's determined face. She saw it was over. She gave one sharp, furious nod. "Good," Sheriff Tucker said. He walked over to Billy and knelt down, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. Billy watched him carefully. "Billy," the sheriff said, his voice much softer. "You have a place to stay tonight?" Billy shook his head. "Okay, we're going to fix that. You and Diablo." He looked up at the bull. The bull looked back, his deep brown eyes calm. "You're not alone anymore. That's a promise." Billy didn't smile, but the tight fear in his shoulders began to ease. He patted Diablo's neck. Diablo let out a soft rumbling sound and nudged Billy's hand with his nose. The sheriff stood up. He looked at the crowd of his neighbors, people he had known for 20 years. "The show's over," he said. "But the work isn't. We've got a lot to make right." The morning after the fire felt different in Merrick. The air was clean and washed from the rain. Word of what happened spread from porch to porch over coffee. Sheriff Tucker didn't go to his office first. He drove his patrol car to the old Henderson place on the edge of town. Mrs. Evelyn Henderson was in her garden. She was a widow with a kind face and 2 big, empty barns. "Morning, Evelyn," the sheriff said, tipping his hat. "Morning, Roy. Hear about that little boy, I suppose?" "I am. He needs a place. A real one, for him and that bull." Mrs. Henderson wiped her hands on her apron. "I've got the old milking barn. It's small, but it's sound. Roof's good. I'd be happy for the company." "He can't pay rent," Sheriff Tucker said honestly. "I don't need rent. I need someone to appreciate it. You bring them by." Next, the sheriff found Billy. He and Diablo were by the dry creek again, the bull grazing on the tough grass. Billy was watching the town, unsure. "Billy," the sheriff called out, walking slowly. "I've got a proposition for you." Billy stood up, nervous. "Mrs. Henderson has a small barn on her property. It's empty. She says you and Diablo can live there. No strings. It's yours." Billy blinked. "Live there? In a barn?" "It's a good barn, with a roof and a door that locks." The sheriff knelt down. "It's not behind a diner. It's a home if you want it." Billy looked at Diablo. The bull lifted his head, chewing slowly. He looked calm. Billy looked back at the sheriff and gave a small, quick nod. "All right then," Sheriff Tucker said. "Let's go." News traveled faster than they did. By the time Sheriff Tucker walked with Billy and Diablo to the Henderson farm, people were already there. Mr. Carl from the diner was there with a bag of food. "Figured you might be hungry," he said, handing Billy the bag. Inside were 2 hamburgers with pickles. Joe, the farmer from the auction, was there with his truck. In the back were fresh straw bales. "For bedding," he grunted, "for both of you." The small barn was just as Mrs. Henderson said. It was old and simple, with one big stall and a little loft above, but it was solid. A few other townspeople were there too, sweeping out old cobwebs, checking the water pump outside. Mrs. Henderson came out with a pile of clean blankets. "These are for you," she said to Billy, "and I'll bring a hot meal at 6 o'clock every evening. For you and a bucket of oats for your friend. That's the deal." Billy didn't know what to say. He held the bag of food and the blankets and looked at all the people. They were smiling at him, not laughing. Smiling. "Thank you," he whispered. But it was so quiet only Mrs. Henderson heard. "You're welcome, honey." For the next 2 weeks, Merrick kept its promise. A man came to fix the barn's front gate. A woman brought a box of clothes that her own son had outgrown. Sheriff Tucker came by every single day, not to check on him, but to talk. He would sit on a stool and ask Billy about Diablo or about the weather. One evening, Billy was brushing Diablo's sleek black coat with a brush Joe had given him. The bull stood quietly, his eyes half closed. Mrs. Henderson had just left after dropping off a pot of stew. Sheriff Tucker walked in, his hat in his hands. "Looks good in here." Billy nodded. The barn was tidy, the straw was fresh. His few clothes were folded in a corner. It was his. "I did the paperwork," the sheriff said. "It's all official. You are a resident of Merrick. You have an address. This is your home. No one can take it from you." Billy stopped brushing. He looked around the small space. He looked at Diablo, content and safe in his stall. He felt the full weight of the word the sheriff had said. Asterisk home. Asterisk. "Does that mean I don't have to hide anymore?" Billy asked. Sheriff Tucker's face grew serious. "It means you never should have had to hide in the first place. I'm sorry for that, Billy. We all are." Billy walked over to Diablo and put his arms around the bull's great neck. He buried his face in the coarse hair. Diablo turned his head and nuzzled the boy's back. When Billy turned around, he was smiling. It wasn't a wobbly, small smile. It was a full, real smile that lit up his whole thin face. "We like it here," Billy said. "Good," said Sheriff Tucker. He put his hat back on and tipped the brim. "You get some sleep." Billy finished his stew. He climbed the ladder to the little loft where his blankets were laid out. He lay down. Through the small window, he could see the stars over Kansas. Down below, he heard Diablo settle in the straw with a deep, peaceful sigh. Billy wasn't a street boy. He wasn't a joke. He was the boy who had a bull for a friend. He was the boy with the brave heart. He was home.